1973, Pinehurst. A 42-year-old golfer with the strangest swing anyone had ever seen just defeated Ben Crenshaw, a 21-year-old prodigy destined for greatness. The prize? $100,000, the largest check in golf history at that time. Jackie Burke Jr. watched and said Miller Barber's swing looked like an octopus falling out of a tree. Critics mocked it. Traditionalists said it violated every fundamental. Yet Barber won 35 professional tournaments with that exact motion. So here's the question. How did a swing everyone called wrong become so devastatingly right? Miller Westford Barber Jr. was born in 1931 in Shreveport, Louisiana. His parents divorced when he was 3 years old. He grew up in Texarkana, Texas, raised by his mother who ran a small grocery store. They weren't wealthy. At 11, Miller discovered golf. At 13, he took his first real lesson. But before that, his first golf bag wasn't leather or canvas. It was a cardboard tube coated with shellac to keep out the rain, homemade, because that's all they could afford. To pay for lessons, young Miller worked preparing vegetables for military troop trains passing through town, heading west to the Pacific. Picture this: a kid standing by the railroad tracks, carrying his cardboard golf bag, earning pennies at a time. From those humble beginnings, a boy with a shellac tube and a dream, Miller would eventually earn millions. Because Miller started late at 11 and taught himself, he developed a swing based purely on feel. It worked for him. But when coaches tried to fix it, tried to make it look correct, complete disaster. Miller's own words. So he went back to what felt natural, even though it looked bizarre. Here's what made it so strange. On his backswing, Miller's right elbow flew outward dramatically. He lifted the club on an outside line until the shaft was nearly perpendicular to the ground, completely backwards from textbook golf. But the genius was in his downswing. He looped the club back inside, squaring the club face perfectly at impact. Miller explained it simply. Over the years, I tried to change, but I really couldn't play any other way. The downswing is all that matters. Peter Allis described it in 1980 as a very strange swing indeed. Right elbow projecting strongly and loops it around and into the ball. The lesson? Miller succeeded by accepting himself, not by becoming someone else. Miller turned professional in 1958 and joined the PGA Tour in 1959. Early on, he struggled. But he became famous for something else, his mysterious lifestyle. As a bachelor, Miller would vanish every night after tournaments. Nobody knew where he went. He wore thick prescription dark glasses that gave him an enigmatic look. His fellow pro Jim Ferree recalled, "We never knew where he went." First, it was the mysterious Mr. X. We shortened that to Mr. X. In later years, we just called him X. Miller ran with a group of single-tour pros, Raymond Floyd and Bob Rosberg. He had a reputation for relationships at every tour stop. There are two stories about his nickname. One, he beat George Baer in a long drive contest and inherited the name. Two, Ferree gave it to him because of his secretive nights. Either way, Mr. X had become golf's most intriguing character. From 1959 to 1962, Miller competed on the PGA Tour with little success. The money dried up, the dream seemed over. He left the tour to become a teaching professional at Appowamus Club in New York just to survive. Many assumed Miller Barber had given up on professional golf entirely. But in 1963, Miller made a decision. Golf Digest described it as, he lit out on the tour again. He came back. 1964. Miller was 33 years old when he won his first tournament, the Cajun Classic Open Invitational. From teaching pro, back to champion. Here's what people didn't understand. Those years teaching weren't failure. They were refinement. Explaining golf to others forced Miller to understand his own swing even deeper. The comeback had begun. From 1967 to 1974, Miller Barber won at least one tournament every single year, 8 consecutive seasons of victories. Only one other golfer accomplished this during that same period, Jack Nicklaus. Miller consistently finished in the top 25 on the money list from 1966 through 1978. Year after year, he delivered. Some notable wins: the Phoenix Open in 1971, where he shot 261, the lowest score since Mike Sochak's record of 257, set in 1955. The Tucson Open in 1972, a brutal 21-hole playoff against George Archer, his final PGA Tour victory at the Phoenix Open in 1978 at age 46. When critics mocked his swing, Miller had a response: "The one thing I know is that I can beat all the guys who make fun of my swing." He didn't need to look pretty. He just needed to win, and he did. (1969) Champions Golf Club in Houston, Texas. The U.S. Open. This was Miller's best chance at a major championship. After 54 holes, Miller led the tournament with a score of 206, a U.S. Open record at that time. He was 3 strokes ahead of Orville Moody. Victory seemed inevitable. Then came the final round. Miller started with 5 bogeys in the first 8 holes. Everything fell apart. He finished with a 78, 6 over par. Moody won. Miller finished 6th, 3 strokes behind. The major championship he'd worked his entire life for had slipped through his fingers. Context matters here. Just months earlier at the Masters, Miller had also been in the final group on Sunday, 2 strokes back. He shot 74 and missed again. 1969 was the year Miller came closest to major glory. He finished in the top 10 at all 4 majors that year, but he never got one. This collapse could have destroyed him. Instead, Miller did something remarkable. He refused to let it define him. He kept winning consistently, proving that greatness isn't measured by majors alone. Years later, Miller rarely spoke about that day. He simply moved forward. That resilience would matter most later in his career. November 1973, Pinehurst. The World Open Golf Championship announced the most absurd format in golf history: 144 holes over 2 weeks. Double the normal length. The purse was $500,000. The winner would take home $100,000, the biggest prize golf had ever seen. The top stars refused to play. Nicklaus said no. Trevino said no. Johnny Miller withdrew. Weiskopf went elk hunting instead. But Miller Barber showed up. His opponent in the final stretch was Ben Crenshaw, a 21-year-old sensation who just won his first professional tournament. After 90 holes, Crenshaw trailed by 18 strokes. The tournament seemed decided. Then in round 6, Crenshaw shot 64 in brutal wind conditions. Tom Watson called it better than his 62 because of the conditions. Suddenly, Crenshaw was charging back. The final round came down to hole 16, a par 5. Crenshaw, trailing by just 1 stroke, tried to overpower his tee shot. He missed, wildly left. Bogey. Miller, with his caddy Herman Mitchell, who would later work for Lee Trevino, birdied the 17th hole, 3-stroke victory. Afterward, Miller rushed to the parking lot, exhausted. Herman dropped the shag bag. Golf balls scattered everywhere like children playing hide and seek. Miller yelled, "Forget them, Herman. Let's go." He later said of Crenshaw, "He's the best that's come along since Nicklaus. I knew when I'd beat him that I'd done beat somebody." Miller Barber stood 5 feet 11 inches tall and weighed over 200 pounds. Sports writers called him pudgy. He suffered from chronic hay fever that bothered him during tournaments. He wore thick prescription dark glasses everywhere. He didn't look like a golf champion. The Encyclopedia of Arkansas put it bluntly, Barber was no one's ideal of a professional golfer, as he was pudgy, suffered from hay fever, and wore prescription dark glasses that gave him a somewhat mysterious look. But here's what mattered. Miller was golf's everyman. He proved you didn't need 6-pack abs or perfect posture or movie star looks to succeed. When the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame wrote about him, they titled their article simply, "He Gave Us All Hope." Because if Miller Barber could win, maybe anyone could. 1981, Miller Barber turned 50 years old. The senior PGA Tour, now called the Champions Tour, was only 1 year old itself. Miller's first season, 6 tournaments entered, 3 victories, including the Senior PGA Championship, where he beat defending champion Arnold Palmer by 2 strokes. The Encyclopedia of Arkansas described it perfectly. While he had a solid career on the PGA Tour, he experienced a professional rebirth when he moved to the fledgling Senior Tour in 1981. From 1981 to 1989, Miller won 24 tournaments in 9 consecutive years. He won at least 3 tournaments each year for his first 5 seasons. 5 senior major championships compared to 0 regular majors. He was the leading money winner in 1981 and 1982. He won the Byron Nelson Award in 1982. But his greatest achievement? The U.S. Open hat trick. 1982 at Portland beat Gene Littler by 4 strokes. 1984 at Oak Hill dominated the field. 1985 at Edgewood Tahoe beat Roberto De Vicenzo by 4 strokes. Miller Barber remains the only golfer in history to win 3 U.S. Senior Opens. PGA Tour Commissioner Tim Fincham said after Miller's death, Miller and the Champions Tour's other early stars helped establish the tour and make it the tremendous success it has become. This wasn't settling. This was domination. This was redemption. During the 1970s, Miller represented the Hogan Company. Players on tour always wondered how Ben Hogan knew so much about them, their practice habits, their personal lives, how well they represented the company. In 2007, Miller finally revealed the truth. Players who represented the Hogan Company in the 70s were always impressed by how much Ben knew about them. He always seemed to know how much they were practicing, what was happening in their lives, and how well they were representing the company. Now it can be told, I was Ben's eyes on tour. Hogan also gave Miller crucial advice. Ben Hogan told me to keep a journal of my progress. It was very important, he said, that I organize it into 2 sections, the keys that worked in my golf swing when I was playing well, and the things that didn't work at all and why they didn't work. Miller explained, the journal took me to another level because it stopped me from wasting time. Golfers often try things in their swing a second time, knowing it didn't work the first time. They're chasing their tails. Keeping a journal stops that nonsense. Miller believed his father was dead. Years passed. No contact, no word, just absence. Then one day, while playing at Colonial, Miller received a message, call Mr. Miller Barber. He told Golf Digest in 2007, many years later, I was playing at Colonial when I got a message to call Mr. Miller Barber. It turned out to be my father. I thought he'd died. The voice on the phone was his father alive. The man admitted he'd picked up the phone many times over the years, but could never summon the courage to dial. They talked, they reconnected. Eventually, they became good friends. Even Miller's mother felt happy about the reunion. Miller learned something profound from this. I learned you never close a door out of resentment. This story isn't about golf, but it reveals Miller's character, his capacity to forgive, to open his heart. Perhaps this emotional strength explains how he overcame the 1969 collapse and kept winning for decades. Champions aren't just built on the course. They're built in moments like these. At age 39 in 1970, Miller married Karen. The marriage lasted 43 years until his death. Together they raised 5 sons, Larry and Richard, his biological children, plus Casey, Doug, and Brad from Karen's previous marriage. The mysterious Mr. X got a new nickname. Arnold Palmer overheard Karen call Miller precious one day. Palmer, being Palmer, started using it to tease him relentlessly. From the bachelor who disappeared into the night to a devoted husband and father, Miller had transformed completely. This stability coincided with the most consistent years of his career. Marriage grounded him. Family gave him purpose beyond trophies. Mr. X became precious. And he was better for it. 1,297 combined tournament starts, PGA Tour and Champions Tour combined, more than any golfer in history. 711 starts on the PGA Tour, 11 wins, 131 top 10 finishes, 603 starts on the Champions Tour, 24 wins, 155 top 10s. Career earnings, over $4 million, third highest at that time. But the numbers mean something deeper. Miller competed from 1959 to 2004, 45 years, from Eisenhower's presidency to George W. Bush's. He witnessed golf's complete evolution, wooden clubs to metal, persimmon to titanium. After retirement, in 2004, Miller played casually at Whisper Rock and True North in Scottsdale. Current and past tour pros sought him out not just for swing advice, but for his stories. He became a beloved figure at those clubs. The range at Whisper Rock wasn't complete without Miller Barber holding court, sharing decades of wisdom and tales from the golden age of golf. 2012, Miller was diagnosed with melanoma. Treatment worked, the cancer went into remission. But then he contracted pneumonia 3 times. Spring 2013, the cancer returned, this time as lymphoma in his stomach. June 11th, 2013. Around 4:30 in the afternoon, Miller lay in hospice in Scottsdale, too weak to move. His phone rang. Karen answered. She leaned close and whispered, "Jack Nicklaus is calling." Miller gestured weakly. He wanted the phone. His son Larry later told Golf Digest, "It was a sweet call. It was short, and Dad did more listening than talking." But Mr. Nicklaus obviously told him some pretty nice things, because he brightened. He became alert. 3 hours later, Miller Barber passed away. He was 82 years old. Larry continued, "The timing of the call from Mr. Nicklaus was amazing. My dad was one of the key guys he had to beat to get those 18 majors. It was special to know he respected guys like Miller Barber." Golf Digest reflected, "We don't know what Nicklaus told him, but if he conveyed that Barber was one of the very best players of his era and a colorful character who made pro golf fun, and added that he was a good man, he would have been dead on." Miller never won a major championship, but he earned something greater, the respect of the greatest champion who ever lived. Miller Barber proved that success doesn't require perfection. From a boy with a cardboard golf bag to a champion earning millions. From the U.S. Open collapse to 3-time Senior Open champion. From a flying elbow swing that violated every rule to 35 tournament victories. CBS analyst Peter Kostis said after Miller's death, "Miller Barber was a true gentleman that was special in many ways. I will miss him greatly." The Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame titled their article about him simply, "Miller Barber, he gave us all hope." That's his legacy. Not the trophies, not the prize money, hope. Miller's life teaches us authenticity beats conformity, perseverance beats natural talent, character beats trophies. The wrong way can be the right way if it's your way. You don't need to look like a champion to be one. You don't need a major to make a major impact. You don't need to start rich to end up successful. You don't need to swing beautifully to swing effectively. Miller Barber, flying elbow and all, stands as proof the most unconventional path can lead to the greatest destinations. Whatever your flying elbow is, embrace it. Miller did, and he beat the best in the world.